Welcome back to the Crash the Pond podcast. We're here to discuss on this chilly Sunday evening a couple different topics, of course, Ducks related. We're going to get into the Ducks' new jersey. Yes, the Ducks have a new jersey that is coming out, and let's just be honest with ourselves. Jerseys are important. Jerseys are a big deal.
Jerseys
so we have to talk. We have to talk about them.
I feel like jerseys go along with this podcast in a very, very big way. By the way, want to give a shout out to Ducks Go, who just gave us 100 bits, so thank you so much. Yeah, I feel like jerseys are a common theme of this podcast. We go over them a lot. We talk about them a lot. Way more than we probably should, to be honest, when we're talking about hockey. Do we not talk about them enough?
No, I'm saying double down. It's not more than we have to, as you're characterizing it.
Do we not? Okay, do we not talk about them enough? Should we talk about jerseys more?
You know what? I think we should.
Okay. Well, it's about time, so let's do it.
Triple down. So let's get into that. But first, do want to point out that afterwards, we are going to be doing a preview of the 2022 or is it 2021 expansion draft?
Summer 2021.
Summer 2021 expansion draft, the Seattle expansion draft, and that is coming up. That is way closer than one might think. You see my Freudian slip there of calling it 2022 in my mind, thinking it's so far away, but it really isn't. And so we're going to get into that and how the Ducks, what we would do, how the Ducks are going to fare. So it's going to be interesting. But let's start on this jersey. So earlier in the week with the NHL's reverse retro program brought to you by Adidas, the Ducks revealed a teaser of the uniform that they are going to be using for their reverse retro. And all signs point to them bringing back the Wild Wing jersey, a white version of the Wild Wing jersey. So first and foremost, Jake, what was kind of your gut reaction? What was just your initial thought when you found that out?
So real quick, now up on the screen for anyone watching the video portion of this podcast, whether on Twitch right now watching us live or on YouTube later, now up on your screen is the Aesthetics article, which actually we should mention this. If you want more in-depth analysis on jersey talk, if you're enjoying this and want more jersey talk, Felix and I on the latest Patreon episode that we recorded and pushed out this past week, we went over this Aesthetics article and went through every single Pacific team reverse retro jersey and did a really in-depth dive on these Ducks jerseys, on a lot of jerseys, and went over a whole lot. So if you want more of this talk, want more of our opinion of this Ducks reverse retro, not third jersey, go listen to that episode, go become a patron, go support us there at the $5 tier and you'll get that. But so my thoughts, I was so happy. I mean, we saw the eggplant and jade with white, and I mentioned this, I think, on Twitter and also on that episode. The white with the eggplant just makes it pop so much better than in the third jersey, the 25th anniversary jersey, where it was the black. The jade just ends up, it kind of looks like teal on the black. That's been my go-to on it, but with the white, it just stands out more. It makes it kind of look little bit more green. The jade just looks so much better, and the fact that eggplant is so prominent. And I mean, the dead giveaway that this was going to be a Wild Wing crashing through the ice jersey is the font. I mean, the fact that you have that cartoonish font. And so, I mean, I'm stoked. I'm so happy. I don't exactly actually have recollection of the Ducks wearing the sweater on the ice. And I think that's why I'm so excited to see it, is that I don't remember them actually wearing it because I was so young. What I associate with this jersey actually is that it's the very cartoon Wild Wing, and it makes me think of the Mighty Ducks cartoon. And so that's why I'm so excited about this jersey. And now you can see actually what they're predicting it's going to be for the reverse portion of it on Aesthetics, where it's going to probably be a white background with some sort of combination you would expect of eggplant and jade. And it's just going to be perfect. And there's so many great things about this. I love the fact that they're using these diagonal angles like we went in depth with on the show that really made the Ducks jerseys unique back in the day and really makes this jersey unique. And there's just so many really, really good elements to this jersey. And if the rumors are true that they're going to be going with eggplant and jade gloves, this goes from just being a great jersey to being one of the best looks the Ducks have worn in the past, 15, 20 years?
Easily,
15 years? Yeah, since they made the change from the Mighty Ducks, this may be the best look they've ever had.
That is a bold take. I don't know if I 100% agree
Okay,
with that.
let me rephrase that. This may be the
Mm-hmm.
best look they've had outside it for multiple games because they had that one retro night, but that was a one-off. They'll wear these for
What
multiple
one?
games.
What one retro night? You're talking about when
During
the 20th anniversary season?
yep, exactly, when they wore the
Okay.
Mighty Ducks jersey. But outside of that,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you could say they've had a better jersey or better overall look than
So,
this sweater.
couple things to note here in Jake's commentary. This is Jake. So when we recorded our Patreon episode, kept referring to this jersey as his vibe. That this is his vibe.
Oh, no, wait, no, the vibe came up about the Coyotes.
But I'm lumping this in.
Okay,
I'm lumping
fine.
this into that because it's probably true anyway. This is your vibe, and so you are a bit. You're not biased towards this jersey, but you just love it because it just fits what you enjoy about jerseys. Other people may not necessarily agree that this is their best look in the last 15 years, but what I do enjoy about this jersey is that they are trying to bring back just kind of a more fun element of their brand, right? And outside of keeping it kind of that serious orange and black with the Web D, which is perfectly fine. It's a good look. This is kind of an ode to the
Yeah.
earlier parts of the earlier days of the franchise and bringing back that kind of fun element to it. Also, there is the kind of reality that they didn't really have many options in choosing their jersey because if they couldn't really reverse retro the original Mighty Ducks jersey because that's essentially their current third jersey, the all orange with the Mighty Duck logo. So this was one of a very limited amount of options, but it's a good option, and I'm excited to see it on the ice, and I'm sure that it will sell and sell
they're gonna
some more.
they're gonna be printing money with this jersey. This will be a jersey that will transcend hockey. Like no, but I'm
will.
dead serious though. You're gonna you will see people all throughout throughout different like sports, throughout different things, rocking this jersey. Will be my prediction. I mean, we saw it with Russell Westbrook rocking a Mighty Ducks jersey at one point in time. I think you'll see plenty of people outside of the hockey realm buy this jersey, and it will have that type of influence on it because of how. I mean, here's the thing: it's unique.
A lot of what clouds your commentary as well is your dislike for the 25th anniversary jersey.
But that doesn't cloud my opinion on this one though.
It doesn't cloud it, but just your commentary about this being the best look in X amount of years. I think that a lot of people really like the 25th anniversary jersey. It was a popular jersey.
I mean,
yeah. And I think you're in the minority really disliking it.
Sure.
Like really disliking it.
Here, so people on Twitter, please, or wherever you want to reach out, whether it's on YouTube comments, whether it's in the Twitch chat right now, wherever you want to yell at me. Let me know what jersey you think is better. If it is one of these predicted jerseys, we know the basics of this upcoming reverse retro. That it's going to be a white jersey, most likely Wild Wing crashing through the ice. It's most likely going to be that. And of course, once this is all announced tomorrow, we'll know exactly what the jersey is.
So by the time you're listening to this recorded version of the pod, the jersey will probably be released already.
What I want
be announced Monday
is reach out to me. Let me know which jersey you like more, this one or the 25th anniversary. Because here's my gut. Regardless of how you feel about the 25th, whether you're like me, that not a big fan, or whether you loved it, I don't know if you can simply say that jersey is better than this one. I just don't. I don't know how you can. I mean, granted, I guess I can say this.
You can definitely say it's better.
Jerseys are all subjective, all subjective and based on personal taste. So you can do whatever the hell you want. But I'm putting my foot down and saying there's no way that the 25th anniversary jersey can be better than this one.
If we are restricting ourselves to the subjective world of jersey evaluation, I think there's a definite case to be made that the 25th anniversary jersey is better because it's kind of it could be its own home jersey. It could be its own home and away kit. Whereas this
this could. Oh, it'd be so good.
No.
It'd be this
is
all right,
this
fine.
has
fair enough. Fine.
Come on.
Heyo D-Flow chiming in with the actual correct opinion on jerseys that we know of. The current third jersey is better than the 25th anniversary jersey. That is correct.
I think that's a fine take.
The
I don't
orange is better than the 25th.
I don't know if I 100% agree with that because I just prefer the jade color scheme to the orange personally. I just think it's a more unique look, but I have time for that argument.
Yeah.
It's not outlandish.
So
Uh, it's definitely not as outlandish as saying that this is the best jersey the Ducks have had in 15
it's
years.
really not that outlandish. I don't know why you're saying it's that outlandish.
Because there are other candidates. There are other candidates that they have worn that have been good.
Name one in the last 15 years.
The 25th anniversary jersey, the current
no,
alternate jersey.
no. I am a big fan of the orange alternate. No way that you can say that that's better.
Well, I'm just saying there's an argument to be made. It's not necessarily what I think.
Fine.
But I think that there's definitely going to be fans listening to this who own some of these jerseys who would probably say that they really like those jerseys.
I own the orange third. I love it. I'm a fan.
You love whatever's new. You love.
I did not love the 25th.
Out with the old, in with the new.
I did not.
I'm still very confused at your visceral dislike for that jersey. That's what this is all about. Because sorry if this has turned into debate, because we spent like 2 hours talking about this topic earlier in the week. So now we're just reaching a different offshoot of the subject. I'm not saying I dislike this new jersey that they're bringing for the reverse retro. I think it's great. I love the concept. It's going to be so much fun. It's going to look great on the ice. I'm excited about it, and I love that they preserved that weird, completely illegible font on the back with the name bars.
So unique. So unique.
It's going to be great. But it's not a look that's necessarily for everybody, and I'm sure there are definitely people who prefer the 25th anniversary jersey or that prefer the alternate jersey. That it's okay to be open to that.
Okay. Sure.
It's Jake's Fair the Highway is something that people have to realize.
No, I get it. Jerseys are completely subjective, and people are going to like, and you are allowed to like whatever you want.
Well, here's the I guess the only other candidate that they could have done would have been the jerseys from that same season, 95, with the fourth jersey that they had that year.
I'm a big fan of that jersey, to be honest, and I think that redoing that would have been interesting, but I mean, yes. the issue was that jersey was all creativity. That jersey already had multiple different color variations on it. So
yes,
that you can't exactly reverse retro that unless you went with like an orange version of it.
So at this point, I feel like I really do need to go back and read what reverse retro actually means, because I feel like different teams have applied it in different ways.
Yep.
So if you look at the Colorado Avalanche and what they've done,
it's a beaut.
And so they brought back the Nordiques jersey, but they just put their current colors on it. So,
yeah.
But see, for other teams, they picked an older jersey and just flipped the colors that it had at the time. So
reverse retro can mean whatever you want it to mean.
Well, the standard is not obvious, is what I'm trying to say.
So let's briefly do this before we jump into the expansion draft. So there's been a teaser for every team in the NHL now.
Yes.
And so outside of the Pacific Division teams, because we've gone in depth on those on the Patreon episode, what is the look that you're most excited to see on the ice?
Ooh, there are many candidates. I'll give you a top three.
I said one, but sure, go with three. You do you.
I don't care about your rules. My top three. The Sabres one is promising.
Yes.
It's bringing back their alternate from the early 2000s with the crossed, the butter knives, as some fans call it, and they brought back the Buffalo logo on the shoulders. So I love that. And I love the Capitals bringing back the eagle, the screaming eagle. I think that's going to be a good look.
Correct.
With their current colors.
Correct.
And then my third, I like how I gave you two and you asked for one, and I'm struggling with a third.
Yeah, you can't say three and then struggle with a third.
My third, well, I just don't want to sound too biased, but I've been hating on it a lot, but I think the Canadiens' inverted home jersey may actually end up being one that I'm a fan of.
All right. And then I'm going to stick to the one that I said what was that you had to pick, and you decided to give me 3.
Oh, I know which one you're gonna go with. Can I guess?
Sure.
Arizona Coyotes.
No, I said not in the Pacific because we already went
It's
over
not in
the
the
Pacific.
Pacific. Okay, well then let me try to guess again. Whalers.
No, this is so simple because I already said it. It's the Avalanche.
I'm conflicted on that one.
I think it's gonna look amazing. I think it's gonna look so nice. That logo is such a good logo. Here's the thing, if they do a Nordiques logo, I guess that's the key aspect. We're not positive. All for all intents and purposes, it looks like they're gonna do a Nordiques logo. They have the pattern on the jersey that matches a Nordiques jersey. It's just the different coloring. So it would make sense. I mean, maybe they go off script and they do they end up doing an Avalanche logo.
Would be a bad call.
But if it's a Nordique logo, it will be great.
So I love the jersey, of course, but it just feels odd to see that jersey in different colors. It doesn't sit right with me. There's something that feels sacrilegious about it. The Nordiques can only be blue to me. So don't love that aspect of it, but I'm fine with it.
By the way, good friend of the show, Tony Kenpafu on Twitch, said, I'm generally not a huge fan of analyzing jerseys. With that being said, though, the Habs one is lame.
It is lame. I agree, because first off, the Canadians shouldn't be blue. One of their biggest rivals is a blue team, so it looks very wrong for them to have a blue jersey. That being said, they're kind of roping me in slightly. I think it's going to look good on the ice. It's just the concept is just lazy to me. That's what I dislike about it. One jersey that I'm happy about is the fact that the Panthers are going back to their 90s look, because that is the Panthers look that I prefer so much more.
I'm just annoyed that they're going blue, but I guess I would have preferred I guess if they went red, that's just one of their jerseys. So
exactly. The worst one for sure, though, I don't think there's even a debate, is the Red Wings.
Oh,
and of
no,
course, it's the Jets. This is all just perfect. This is all based on what we think it's going to be. But look, have you seen the Red Wings?
Yeah, the Jets is still worse. It's still worse than the Red Wings.
Did the Red Wings even try? Did they even have a meeting about this?
I don't know. I mean,
they just slapped silver onto their existing jerseys.
Yeah, the Jets is still bad though. Like, that's the thing is, I will agree. The Red Wings is the least creative.
Oh, by far.
The Jets is the worst, though.
Well, I would just be insulted if I were a Red Wings fan, because I would be asking the franchise, "You're expecting me to buy this? You're expecting to just put this out there and expecting me to buy it? No way."
Yeah, Red Wings fans, buy a Ducks jersey instead.
I'm surprised neither of us brought up the predicted Minnesota Wild look.
Oh, it's a good look.
Which is an ode to the North Stars, but putting an M instead of the N. That's going to look amazing if that's indeed what they do.
The Preds jersey is pretty bad also.
Well, the thing with the Preds is that era of jerseys is not great for them.
Oh, so to bring back something from the Patreon episode, to fill everyone in, it was a really fun episode where I decided to call any team that didn't go for one of their worst looks cowards.
Yes.
The Predators are cowards. Well, let's be real here. If they were if they were not cowards, they would have done that goofy looking Predator.
Well, here's the thing.
I guess we don't know the logo yet.
They won't be cowards if they bring back the mustard/vomit yellow as the base color.
But you can already see that. You can see the base color on it, I think.
No, you can't really.
You can see it's yellow. It's just their normal yellow.
No, you can't.
I'm going to. Yes, you can.
That's just the line. That's the outline.
I guess. Yeah. So there is a chance that they're not cowards, and it's that disgusting mustard yellow.
Yes. But let's talk about the Jets, though, for a quick second. I just don't understand the Jets. Their jerseys, when they first came out, when they moved from Atlanta to Winnipeg, I like them. I thought that they were boring, but it was a good kind of solid, safe launching off point for a new franchise or a rebooted franchise. But ever since then, unless it's been a clear throwback, their jerseys have been really lame, and they just made a previous jersey from their history so much worse. Why make it gray?
Yeah.
Gray.
Their reverse retro was taking an old jersey and making it a color that's not even really in their color palette at all. Like, where's gray in the Jets' current color palette?
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
Well, it's a trim. It's a trim. So it separates the navy blue from like the white on their away jerseys.
So you're gonna make
And
the entire thing gray.
I agree. It's not a good move. Okay, let's kind of round out this topic.
Yeah, I think it's time to move on to the more serious topic.
A couple others. I just want to point out a couple others. Like I think the Dallas Stars really nailed theirs. I think they hit that one out of the park with just making their old school away jerseys with an updated color scheme.
Yeah.
And I love the Tampa Bay Lightning going back to their 90s look. Love that, because that to me is how they should look currently. So I like that that's where their head is at. But we'll find out tomorrow. We still don't exactly know what these will look like, but I have a feeling that these predictions we're seeing on Aesthetics are going to end up being pretty accurate.
Yep.
Okay. So we're going to start talking about the expansion draft here. Coming up in a little bit, we'll get into talking about some friends of ours, but let's just kind of set the table here for the expansion draft. So expansion draft is coming up next summer. Why don't you go over for the listeners here just kind of the baseline rules of the game here?
Yeah. So here's kind of the important points. I right now have up on the screen for anyone watching the YouTube or the YouTube video or the Twitch stream. You'll be able to see this is from Cap Friendly, their expansion draft FAQ. So as far as we know, and this was actually announced by the National Hockey League, that I believe that, or sorry, actually backtracking slightly. I don't know if they've actually announced the expansion draft rules, but they've heavily hinted or mentioned that it's going to be the same as Vegas. And so with that being said, Cap Friendly has put together all of their rules based upon what happened with Vegas. And so the important points to note are you can have two different options for protection lists. You can either have option 1, you protect 7 forwards, 3 defense, and 1 goalie. Option 2, you protect 8 skaters and you protect 1 goalie. So any combination of 8 forwards and defensemen and 1 goalie. So there's obviously a benefit to option 1 because you can protect 11 players as compared to option 2 only protecting 9. The downside is, though, you have to fit within the 7 forwards and 3D. So if you have 4D you want to protect, you have to go with the 8 skaters option. The other thing to note is no movement clauses. Anybody with a full no movement clause, and it is continuing through the next season, and that is critical actually for Ryan Kesler. If he was playing and healthy, he would still be eligible for the expansion draft and not have to be protected because his no movement clause becomes a no trade clause in the 21-22 season. And so it's not continuing. It is not necessary to be protected, but last expansion draft, actually, anyone who was on LTIR and not playing, they did not have to be protected even if they had no movement clauses. But so anyone with the full no movement clause continuing has to be protected. I actually do not believe, as of right now, there are any Ducks in that category, and I don't believe there will be any. So good news for the Ducks on there. It seems like Bob Murray learned his lesson somewhat after last expansion draft of being forced to protect Kevin Bieksa as a result of giving him a full no movement clause. Another important thing, first and second year pros are exempt from the expansion draft. So all players who have accrued 2 or less professional seasons at the end of the 2021 season, as well as all unsigned draft choices appearing on the team's reserve list, will be exempt from the upcoming expansion draft. So guys like Trevor Zegras, he's not going to have enough experience to be eligible. Guy like Jamie Drysdale, another guy who won't be eligible for it. I believe Max Comtois has not played in enough games. Even though a year burned off his contract, that 1 year that he played with the Ducks for, I believe it was 10 or 11 games, he did not play in enough games for that to count as a year of professional experience. So he is not eligible, whereas Isaac Lundestrom actually did. And so Isaac Lundestrom is actually eligible. And then the final kind of really important thing to note is minimum exposure requirements. So all teams have to expose a certain amount of players that are actually NHLers. And that's the purpose of this requirement, is the NHL doesn't want you to just expose all scrubs that are AHLers that can't play because your team is bad, basically. and you're only protecting your good players, and so there's no one left for the expansion team. So you have to expose 2 forwards that are under contract for the 21-22 season. So they're under contract going into the next season. They have played in either 40 games in the season prior to the expansion draft, which would be the 2021 season. So that's this upcoming one, or played in 70 games over the past 2 seasons. So it would be this upcoming one and the prior one. And just to note, I believe those 40-70 rules are going to be amended. Not exactly sure what the actual game limits are, but it will be prorated in some form because last season we didn't get a full 82 game season. Upcoming season most likely will be shortened also. I would assume it will probably be shortened, probably 30-50, something like that in that range. But these rules will still apply. And defense, it's only 1 player that meets that criteria. So you have to have exposed 2 forwards and 1 defense that meet that criteria. Whereas goalies, the only requirement is you have to expose a goalie who's under contract for the next season. So for the 21-22 season. Or I guess they can be expiring and they're an RFA for summer. And so you have to expose that type of player. And so those are really the big things. I mean, there's injured players, like I said, anyone who's with potential career-ending injuries and who have missed the previous 60-plus consecutive games. They don't have to be exposed. They're exempt from the expansion draft. So Ryan Kessler will probably meet that requirement and will be deemed exempt from the expansion draft. And so there's some rules about the team drafting, but we're not really going to get into that because that's more so an issue for Seattle. The bigger thing for the Ducks is what are they going to do with their protection list? Because, I mean, as we know, the last expansion draft, the Ducks got royally screwed over, and the issue that happened, it wasn't the fact that Vegas screwed them over. It was that they screwed themselves over, basically. The Ducks outthought it. They outthought themselves. They tried their best to get cute, and in the process, lost a very, very good defenseman, and that is potentially going to be something that will haunt them for a long time, and we talk about it all the time. That it's been an issue for the Ducks. And so this is important, and that's kind of why we're going to run through it.
So before we go further into that, I would just ask you more specifically, so what do you think the Ducks actually did wrong? Because you're saying, they overthought it, they got too cute. So what specific things did they do wrong that they can easily avoid this time around?
I think the big thing is that they just need to not overthink it. They need to understand what their rules are, what they have, and if they have a player that they think they may lose, they can basically end up trading him away for something, basically not lose him for nothing. Or, I mean, I guess the worst case, you lose him for nothing, and don't overdo it. Don't try to get too cute. The Ducks are not contending now. If they are going to lose a Josh Manson, just lose a Josh Manson. Don't lose something in the future also.
Mm-hmm. So I think what I'm hearing from what you think they did wrong is that they tried too hard to kind of, I guess, keep everything intact and try to be everywhere, but they ended up being nowhere all at the same time.
Yep.
And they ended up losing a good player. So what you're saying is that for this coming draft, you'd prioritize future kind of younger future assets more than trying to hold on to veteran players. Right.
Yep.
That's kind of your methodology there. So then quickly here, just going into this draft, you've already laid out what the Ducks did wrong, and there's clearly some things to point to there. What just kind of basic ideals or principles are you trying to adhere to going into this, creating your protected list and just overall thought process? You've talked about prioritizing younger players. So is there anything else just in your methodology here that you're prioritizing?
I personally, I'd be prioritizing young players. I mean, you kind of said that, but I'd be prioritizing young players. I would be potentially looking at maybe utilizing Seattle to try to get out of a contract. Now, granted, Seattle's a team that are going to be having they have a really robust analytics department, so I highly doubt they're gonna kind of take that off of you and make a dumb move like that. So I'd be exposing guys to maybe have Seattle think that they will get a guy that will help them now. They have the ability to take on a contract because they're going to need to hit the cap floor, so maybe they do that.
They still need to get to the cap floor, exactly.
Yeah.
You have to take someone. So I think that, yeah, so just to build off that, I think you definitely need to prioritize younger players, right? And although the list of those players is not necessarily the longest in the eligible players, but also try to get out of contracts if you can. I think that that's the biggest thing is this format seems to favor, or at least make it possible for you to potentially get out of a bad contract if you play it right. Is that do you see it that way?
Yes, and sorry, I was trying to. There was someone in our Twitch chat that was a bot trying to ban them in the last little bit. So sorry.
Oh, okay.
That was the reason for that. So
do you want to recant anything you just said?
No, I don't want to recant anything. I don't want to recant or clarify. I mean, everything I said was basically on par. The Ducks need to be prioritizing younger players. They need to. I mean, we've talked about it. My concern, and this would be my big concern if I'm the Samuelis, with letting Bob Murray, and I think that's why this season is so important from the Ducks' perspective, from the Samuelis' perspective, from a lot of different perspectives. This is a massive, massive season because are you going to let Bob Murray run the expansion draft again? Because Bob Murray, we've talked about it, is a guy that thinks this team is in win now mode. They're a team that should be contending now. And that led to the Shea Theodore mistake last expansion draft. That's what leads you to make those decisions. And at the time, you could squint and say, okay, I get why they made that decision. I get why they made that choice. And as a result of that is they decided to prioritize Josh Manson over Shea Theodore because they thought Josh Manson was the guy just had made the conference final. They thought Josh Manson was the guy that was going to help them make the conference final again. As it turns out, that was the beginning of the end for the team in terms of bottoming them out. That next season, they made the playoffs with a pretty good season, but got swept by the Sharks, and then it all went downhill from there.
Well, I don't know. Sorry to cut you off, but I don't know if is it clearly Josh Manson versus Shea Theodore and all this? Because I think there are other candidates that you could say they prioritized over Shea Theodore.
But it was prioritizing people that would help them now, help them in the now as compared to help them in the future. And that mentality was due to the fact that Bob Murray wanted this team to have another go at a cup. If Bob Murray is thinking that this team is contending now, keeping a Josh Manson, and we'll go through the protection list, and it will become kind of a lot clearer then, or protecting an Adam Henrique over someone, those types of decisions help you now. There's no doubt. Keeping Adam Henrique over, let's say, Sam Steele is a smart decision if you are trying to be better next season. I don't think either of us can disagree with that Adam Henrique helps you more in the 21-22 season than Sam Steele. But is that a wise decision if you're a team that is not contending? Is that something that you want? And so that's where I am concerned why this is such a big season. Because if Bob Murray still has the reins by the expansion draft, there is some concern in my mind that the Ducks will make a mistake like that and make a move like that, overthink it, overdo it. Maybe they've learned. I hope that Bob Murray's learned from the mistake of last expansion draft, because it's hard to ignore it when anytime you see Vegas on national TV, it gets brought up basically.
Yes.
And so I think that learning from mistakes is a key thing. And my concern is that not necessarily that Bob Murray hasn't, but we're being put into a situation where he may make that same mistake, if that makes any sense.
Well, the Ducks have a lot of concerns regarding the expansion draft. They have a lot of questions that they need to ask themselves, and it's something to monitor. Thanks to our friends at Mack Weldon, we don't have any concerns regarding our clothing during these crazy times and staying warm as the weather kind of starts to get a little chillier, even here in Southern California. The quote-unquote new normal uniform has a lot of us searching our closets and drawers for men's essentials that aren't really there. Instead of the usual business casual button-ups and jeans, it's soft knit polos, tees, joggers, and active shorts. Whatever men's basics you need, Mack Weldon has you covered with unmatched comfort and fit. I mean, you and I, Jake, have gotten to try on some of these clothes, and tell us a little bit about maybe some items that you've enjoyed or that you've kind of taken a liking to.
Let me run through what I've got. Let's be clear here. Mack Weldon's hooked us up a little bit, given us some things. And so, for instance, I've gotten their silver boxer briefs, their everyday extended crew socks. I've gotten their silver stealth socks, their waffle long sleeve crew, their jersey knit boxers, their Ace sweatpants, and their knit boxers. I've also actually, I was so happy with all of that product. And this is being completely honest right now, not just because of this being an advertisement on the show. I went back and I bought more from Mack Weldon this past week.
There you go.
I bought some of their pro knit long johns because, you know, it's gotten cold out. I've been working out a little bit this past year, getting myself back into shape. And so as a result, when I went to work out in my little home gym, it was cold this week. And I was thinking, what could I use? And Mack Weldon had long johns. They had these pro knit long johns. They came in, wore them for my workouts this week. It was great. It kept me just warm enough, was able to pull them up a little bit when I got hot, but it was perfect for the Southern California winter. And to be honest, their Ace sweatpants, these might be the best sweatpants I've ever owned. They're so comfortable. The fit is fantastic. Those of you out there that follow me on Twitter, I think even on this podcast we've mentioned it. I took a really massive professional exam a couple of weeks ago. Both days, wore my Ace sweatpants. Was very happy with my decision both days. It was an 8-hour exam, 4 hours in the morning, 4 hours in the afternoon, all day, 7:15 to basically 6:30 when you factor in breaks and having to be there. Ace sweatpant met the task for me and was perfect and up to the task. And I mean, that's exactly what you want with a sweatpants. Something that's comfortable, something that will have meet the requirements of your need, something that's soft. And I just really can't say enough great things about Mack Weldon. And I mean, I'm just thrilled with the product. It's amazing. I mean, what you just recently actually got yours in. What have you thought?
I ordered the Ace sweatpant as well because you definitely sold it to me. And I gave it a shot, and I've got to say, so working from home, spending a lot of time sitting down indoors, I do try to get out and get some walking in, get outdoors, especially right now when we have to keep our bodies moving. And what I love about the Ace sweatpant, first off, it's just incredibly comfortable. There's a lot of different customized fabrics that Mack Weldon has that, you know, no matter what the product, it's probably going to work for you. And for me, I tend to run hot. It's just how I am. And so what I love about this sweatpant is that when I'm indoors, it keeps me just warm enough without kind of overheating. And then when I go outdoors, it's the same thing. It keeps me just warm enough. But it's also maintains that breathability. I'm actually wearing it right now as well as the Pima t-shirt. Fits great, breathable, light. And so it's really high quality stuff. I'm not someone that does a lot of clothes shopping necessarily, but I can definitely recognize quality when it's there. So if you go check them out at mackweldon.com and you do enjoy the product.
Real quick, I want to jump in here because there's one other thing on Mack Weldon that really gotta tout here. Sorry to jump in on you, Felix, as you're gonna go through how you can enjoy this product. But Weldon Blue is a fantastic, totally free loyalty program. Level 1 gets you free shipping for life. And once you reach level 2, by spending $200, you get 20% off every single order for the next year. That's 20% off every order for your next year. So that it's just a fantastic, fantastic value. And they reward you by supporting their product. And so Mack Weldon wants you to be comfortable. So if you don't like your first pair of underwear, you can keep them and they'll still refund you, no questions asked.
Yep. So if you want to go there and check it out for 20% off of your first order, visit mackweldon.com/CTP, like Crash the Pond, and enter promo code CTP at checkout. That's mackweldon.com/CTP, promo code CTP for 20% off. Mack Weldon, it's keeping us warm, it's keeping us comfortable, and I am very confident that it can do the exact same for you. So, on that note, let's get back into the expansion draft here. So, do you have a list for us? We need a list.
So, I was thinking actually, and we can briefly run through actually the notable players that are eligible per cap friendly. And what I'm thinking we do, we run through them, we figure out if they're going to be protected or not, and go from there. And we'll put together, you and me, our collective list from this podcast. And I think that's a good way to go about this. So really quick, running through the list, we have Ryan Getzloff. Ryan Kesler is listed here, but more likely than not going to be eligible. Ryan Getzloff, though, of note, he is going to be a UFA in the summer of the expansion draft, and that's notable, and we'll get to that. Adam Henrique, eligible and does meet the 40-70 requirement. Jakob Silfverberg, eligible, will probably end up meeting the 40-70. David Backes might meet that requirement. We'll see if he plays in a majority of the games for the Ducks this season. Ricard Raquel, Danton Heinen, Sonny Milano, Derek Grant, Troy Terry, Carter Rowney, Nick Delorier, Isaac Lundestrom, Sam Steele, Max Jones, and then you kind of have a whole cast of AHLers after that point. On defense, you've got Cam Fowler, Hampus Lindholm, Josh Manson, Kevin Shattenkirk, Jacob Larson, Christian Juice, Brendan Gooley, Yanni Hakanpää, Andy Walensky, and this is the one that's notable, in my opinion, is Josh Mahura. And then in terms of goalies, you've got John Gibson and Anthony Stolarz. So let's start with the easy one here, goaltending. John Gibson is who you protect, and there's no doubt about it. The only thing of note on goalie is right now the Ducks actually do not have anyone to meet the requirements. And as I mentioned them before we had our little break, the requirements mean that you have to have someone signed for the next season. So as long as the Ducks sign Anthony Stolarz to an extension, they have someone under contract that will meet. They have someone that will meet that requirement. So I would expect we'll see an Anthony Stolarz extension. If he doesn't sign an extension, the Ducks are kind of screwed. And they would have to expose John Gibson in that case. So they're going to figure out a way to get someone in their system that will meet that requirement. So that's a key thing there, though, to note with goaltending. And then, so let's work under the assumption that we're going to do 7-3-1 here. I think that's fair, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think there's no way that would make sense for the Ducks to do 8 forwards, eight skaters. So let's just go 7-3-1. We'll work under that. So Cam Fowler, protect or not protect?
Protect.
Okay, I agree. I think that maybe you float him. Maybe you float him out there with Seattle potentially taking the contract. Because the contract, let's be real, not great. But I think there's no way you don't protect him. Basically, you have to protect Cam Fowler at this point in time. Mm-hmm. Hampus Lindholm.
Protect.
Correct. I think is no question. Now we start getting into questionables. Josh Manson. Do you protect Josh Manson?
No, I don't protect Josh Manson.
So I don't either.
He's going to be younger. So for me, on the blue line, it comes down to him or Kevin Shattenkirk. And with Kevin
I disagree.
Well, because Kevin Shattenkirk is going to be on there. So are you in your head, is this about Josh Mahura?
Correct. Or you could make the argument Christian Juice even. If Christian Juice has a good season.
So the 40-70 rule, is that, so can that include AHL games?
No.
Okay. So my whole thing is, I don't know if Josh Mahura is going to be eligible by the time.
He is eligible. The 40-70 rule has nothing to do with eligibility for the expansion draft.
Okay.
The 40-70 rule is, and that is why Kevin Shattenkirk will it's going to be Kevin Shattenkirk or Josh Manson, or I guess Jacob Larson could potentially play in enough games to meet the requirement to be meet the 40-70. The 40-70 is there, like I think I said this a little bit earlier, but it's there just to basically make it so there's someone exposed that is an NHLer.
So I think it's between Manson and Shattenkirk if you're trying to keep decent defensemen on your roster. Mm-hmm. You could say it's between Shattenkirk and Mahura, or Shattenkirk and Juice, or Shattenkirk and Gooley, but I'd feel pretty comfortable leaving Josh Manson exposed, even though he has, he's still got some decent game left. I think that his contract is going to expire sooner, and with Shattenkirk, he's signed for longer. I think he's probably going to be better for a little longer amount of time. So he is the guy that I would protect of those two. You could make the case that you protect neither and choose to protect Josh Mahura, but I don't necessarily know if he would be the guy that Seattle would target, because Josh Mahura, look, he's been a fine prospect and he's played decently in San Diego and he's looked good coming up to Anaheim, but I just don't think he's anywhere close to that Shea Theodore
No.
caliber.
I
And so I don't I don't want to box myself into thinking that you have to protect Josh Mahura at all costs, because I just don't think he's tracking at all in that same
no.
way. Just because you lost Shea Theodore the last time around.
So I don't think you need to protect Josh Mahura at all costs, but I
Mm-hmm.
think given the predicament that the Ducks are in, given where they're going, who's going to have
Mm-hmm.
more value to this team when they're contending? Josh Mahura will have more value for this team in 2 to 3 years than Josh Manson probably will, and more than Kevin Shattenkirk probably will. And so by that value proposition, and granted, it's an
Maybe.
unknown. It's
Maybe.
it's an
I mean,
unknown.
this big maybe.
It's a maybe. So fair enough. But
What has Josh Mahura shown that gives you confidence that will happen? Like a 5-game sample?
yeah, but then again, what was Josh Manson at 22 years old? And he was probably lower than Josh Mahura. And so you're doing a long you're doing a long-term projection here, and do you want to lose that prospect? Because that's the thing. This isn't you're losing the prime years of this guy. You're losing or the back end of this guy's career. You're losing all of his prime years if you lose Josh Mahura. He is going to Seattle and staying in Seattle. And that's, I think, the issue here is that this would be a situation where I would not classify this in the realm of Shea Theodore.
What if they take Brendan Gooley instead?
I think you and I both have issues with Brendan Gooley, and I kind of doubt that would happen. Honestly, if Josh Manson is exposed, they're taking Josh Manson. That's who they're taking from the Ducks, no doubts about it. I think if you're the
That's
Ducks,
the thing.
I think if you're the Ducks, you have to look at trading Josh Manson as a result. And this is where this comes in, and where my big opinion on this comes in, that the Ducks should be looking to trade Manson is due to this expansion draft. And it's not the end of the world if you lose Manson for nothing, but
it's not great.
You could have had something for him by this point in time. And so
it's not great asset management is the issue.
It is not, but it's also not great asset management to lose a 22-year-old, decently high profile defenseman. And so I don't think Shattenkirk, to me, honestly, even comes in the conversation for protection. So that I was a little shocked when you threw that out there when you and I were talking a little bit earlier, and Shattenkirk was who you were looking to protect.
The thing is, I am looking at it more so in what I think that will happen, and not as much of not as much of what I personally would do, because the Ducks signed Shattenkirk to this contract, and I think that they really value him. And I don't know how well that would sit if they expose him in the expansion draft.
You got to think there was a conversation about that when they signed him.
That they're not going to expose him?
That they would expose him, or that was brought into the conversation about it.
Maybe. Do we even know that?
No, we don't, but you would have to think. To me, there's just no way that the Ducks... I could be proven wrong. This could come back to bite.
If the Ducks valued the future so much, then why did they even sign Kevin Shattenkirk in the first place?
Well, because they wanted to make them better now, but I think Murray also, in some ways, does value the future. He does think that matters. I don't really see that Shattenkirk... especially if you trade Manson, it all depends on how much Larson plays, I guess, this year. But Shattenkirk, I think Shattenkirk was brought in to play and help, but also meet that 40-70 requirement.
Possibly.
And so
I don't know.
If you trade Manson, Larson has to play this year, and then he hits that and is that for you. But I don't know.
What I would probably do from a personal standpoint, not so much just trying to project what I think they will do, I would protect probably Fowler, Lindholm, and then I would protect Mahura and just either trade Manson or just leave Shattenkirk and Manson out there and leave another forward out there. We'll get to the forwards, and they can only take one guy, right?
Exactly.
So worst case scenario, I'm going to get off of a contract, and that's a win for me.
Exactly.
Putting myself in the GM chair. So that's what I would personally do. What I think they will do is Fowler, Lindholm, Shattenkirk.
See, I think I agree. What I think they should do, and that's what I'm locking in here because you and I agree on what they should do of protecting Mahura. I think they'll do Fowler, Lindholm, Manson. I think Murray likes Manson too much, and I think if Manson has not been moved and traded prior to the expansion draft, I think Josh Manson is the guy protected. I could be completely off base here. I just don't think Shattenkirk factors into it at all.
You know,
I
say that.
I could be
You,
completely off
you
base.
say that, but you would have never thought that they would have brought him in this offseason as a rebuilding
What?
team.
I thought they would.
You thought that they would get Kevin Shattenkirk?
Yes.
Okay.
I said last summer, I said the Ducks should sign Shattenkirk to a 3-year deal last summer
why would you advocate for signing Shattenkirk if you want this team to be in a rebuilding mode?
Well, no, the reason
that
why
just
I thought
makes no
the
sense.
reason why I thought last year they should for the 3-year was to meet the 40-70 rule. Sign him to a 3-year deal. He gives you some viability on that right-hand side to make this team a little bit better for the now, which whatever. Well, sure, they probably should be worse now from my perspective. But there's also the element of me wanting to watch a little bit of a better team. But regardless, outside of that, the 3-year deal last summer would have helped them meet the eligibility requirement. They signed him. It's a 3-year deal, right, at $3.9 million a year. He's a UFA in 2023. And so to me, the additional years are partially due to the expansion draft. It's partially to get him signed, partially due to the expansion draft.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, possibly. Okay, so you're going Fowler, Lindholm, Mahura?
Yeah, I think we both agree that's what they should do. What they will do could completely be off from that.
I mean, I think the likeliest scenarios are Fowler, Lindholm, Shattenkirk, or Fowler, Lindholm, Manson.
Is there any
100%.
way that Christian Juice pushes himself into that consideration?
I don't think so. I think he's a fine player, but I
think he's too old at this point.
Too old, and there's just too much in his game that's unknown. So one thing I did want to add, and I don't know how much that would change my own thought process, but what is the likelihood that the Ducks extend Josh Manson prior to the expansion draft or in that summer? Because he's going to be a UFA shortly thereafter. And what are the Ducks going to... Well, if the Ducks do intend on keeping Josh Manson, which it does look as though they're going to keep him around because they've had opportunities to trade him, what is that extension going to look like? That's part of my reasoning in being okay with losing him for nothing, because you're avoiding what will probably be a less than ideal extension.
He's not eligible for his extension until after the expansion draft.
Okay, but let's
because
just
he is a UFA in the summer of 2022, and the expansion draft is summer 2021. So the expansion draft happens before July 1. July 1 is the earliest Manson can sign an extension.
Well, so the point I'm just making is that I would be okay with losing Manson for nothing just to avoid what would likely be a poor extension.
That's fair, and I think the only downside, and this is the only downside to losing Manson for nothing, is they could have moved him last summer. They could have moved him last deadline. They could have moved him all these times for something of value instead of losing him for nothing. And that will be the only frustration of mine. I think it will be the correct move at the time to lose him for nothing.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But there is a lot of frustration on me because I have been one of the people championing that.
But look at the way the Ducks have handled this quote-unquote rebuild. What have they really done actively to make their team better set up for the future outside of just drafting well?
Yeah, no, I was...
last 2 drafts.
Did we talk about this recently? I feel like we either talked about this or this popped into my head recently of what actual rebuilding move have they done?
If you look at their roster, there's at least 3 candidates, up to 4, maybe even 5, that they've had in the past that they could have flipped when their deals were about to expire, or even now that have movable contracts that they've just refused to. And if you are truly intent on rebuilding, on moving toward a new core, those are easily identifiable players on this roster. It's your Josh Mansons, your Adam Henriques, your Jakob Silverbergs, even a Ricard Raquel. Turn the page over. Some of them had movable contracts. Manson and Raquel still do. And so the fact that the Ducks haven't done that yet, and looks like they never will because they signed Kevin Shattenkirk, you can say that it's partly about the expansion draft, whatever. It just screams to me that they don't actually care about rebuilding. There's no intention here of rebuilding. All they care about is drafting well, maintaining a baseline of a roster so that when they are when their young players are capable of being NHL players, they have something to inject that into, and not just Detroit Red Wings style kind of skeleton crew, which it could work for them. This could all work splendidly well for the Ducks. They could be a playoff team if everything breaks right. But this is a very difficult way to do it, in my opinion, because you are leaving a lot of value on the table.
Mm-hmm.
That's the issue.
Definitely. So, so let's just kind of wrap this in a bow in terms of the defense. We both agree Fowler, Lindholm, Mahura is our list.
Yep.
All right.
And I just want to point out, again, just for clarity, I'm not the highest on Mahura, but if we're going to be true to our methodology, Mahura is the logical pick there.
Yep. He has the most potential value
yes.
out of the group of guys that could be potentially protected. And T. Anderson said the only thing they can, in our Twitch chat, they have done is trading to get an extra first-round pick. And so, I mean, that is legitimately the only thing they've done.
And they bought out Corey Perry, which debatably hasn't even really helped.
Yeah. So there you go. So here we go. Forwards. Ryan Getzloff. This is an interesting one because personally, and hear me out on this, you don't protect him. The reasoning is, and here's the key thing. If Murray learned from last expansion draft anything, and not only from what the Ducks experienced, but what other teams did, he should be looking at what San Jose did, specifically with one Joe Thornton, and take a page out of that book. By that, what I mean is Joe Thornton was a UFA during the Vegas expansion draft. And instead of signing him on the dot to an extension during the season, what San Jose did was let his contract expire, or basically let him get to the expansion draft, leave him exposed because Vegas was never going to take him, because why would you take a guy that is on an expiring contract that is not going to sign with you? And so Vegas did not take Joe Thornton, and even if they did, he would have just signed back in San Jose on July 1. Mm-hmm. And so that is a slight risk, but it's one that you have to take if you're the Ducks to be able to protect more guys, because the issue for the Ducks is they have a fair amount of forwards that are younger guys that you would want to protect for potential future value. So if I'm Bob Murray, I look at that and I go to Ryan Getzloff and say, hey, we have a contract extension for you, but we have to wait until either after the expansion draft to give it to you, or if for whatever reason Seattle takes you because they just need to take players and they're not actually looking to get a guy from our team, which more likely than not is not going to be the case with Seattle. They're going to probably look at the Ducks and be able to get someone of actual value. But if that were to happen, and then we'll just sign you on July 1, because it seems like Getzloff wants to stay in Anaheim. The Ducks want to keep him. He's a franchise player. I think he's mentioned he wants to play his whole entire career. That is something that does have value to him. And so to me, you got to take a look at it and just say, hey, we're going to leave you exposed because you're an expiring contract. And if you're the Ducks, that would make the most sense. You're not burning an expansion draft spot on him on your protected list for a guy that it's not necessary to do that.
It's so tough with Getzloff because depending on how next season goes, if you expose him, Seattle may consider taking him because I think he could have a very solid bounce back year next season.
The issue is, why would they take him if he's not under contract?
I mean, couldn't you just sign him? Couldn't you just sign him to a 1 year, 2 year deal? Yes,
but he becomes the thing is, Seattle would take him on, if this was Vegas, Seattle, if this goes back to Vegas, let's say whatever, let's say it's the same time frame. Seattle would take him in June, mid to early June, and then 2 weeks later he becomes a UFA and can sign wherever the hell he wants.
Right, but let's assume that they take him, they work something out.
But the thing between. Is that to me that's not honestly a logical. I mean, anything can happen. It potentially could happen.
So that's your opinion, right? And I don't think it's completely logical because look, here's the thing. You're the one that says that Seattle values analytics and is looking at analytics. If you look at analytics, Getzloff looks really good in some departments, and he could have a really good next season. So if they want to be good off the hop, he's potentially one of the guys you target for Vegas. So I guess all of this that I'm saying is that I'm agreeing with you that there is a risk, but the approach that you're taking mitigates some of that risk or lowers the risk.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
the issue there is that yes, he would obviously help Seattle. He makes a lot of teams in the league better. No matter what. The issue is the likelihood of him playing in Seattle, even if they were to take him, is like 1 to 2% in my opinion. It's the same reason why Vegas didn't take Joe Thornton. It just doesn't make any sense and I don't think Vegas really took any guy who's going to be a UFA unless I think Vegas may have done it, but it's because they just needed to pick a guy from that team and it was a burn pick basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so they picked the guy, but they never signed him. Okay. I don't think there was
any.
I don't think there was
Getzloff exposed here.
Yeah, so I don't just to close that out. I don't think Vegas took any player that was a UFA and signed them. I think any player that they would have taken as a UFA left.
Yeah, well, different team, different approach.
Correct, but
management.
I don't think it's likely for that to be the case. So with that, we'll leave Ryan Getzloff exposed.
I think you have to protect Ryan Kesler.
What?
You have to, right?
Of course. I thought at first you were saying because of his no move clause, and I was like, what? Yeah. So Kesler obviously isn't even going to be eligible. He's going to be injury exempt from the expansion draft.
Yeah.
Adam Henrique.
This is
Do we want to skip? Do we want to skip and come back?
No, let's just do it. This is going to take a while, probably. Do you protect Adam Henrique? I'll give you my answer. No.
I think on the surface, no. I think let's get through the rest of the list. The reason why I wanted to skip and come back is let's see where we're at, because I don't know if I would make protecting Adam Henrique a priority. Maybe you even look at it, and maybe this is where you're coming from when you say no so quickly, of you leave him exposed dangling for Seattle if they're looking for someone and they can take the cap hit because they need to hit the cap floor, and he's the guy that actually helps them be somewhat competitive and get butts in the seat right away. This is the
benefit of leaving Henrique and Manson exposed to me, and even Shattenkirk exposed, is that you're going to get rid of some kind of contract that you may not be super happy about. I mean, this could even be an argument to expose Cam Fowler. But anyway, Jakob Silfverberg.
I think the Ducks have to protect. I don't know if I would.
I think I would.
I think I would also. I think maybe
when you go down the list, it's not a deep list, and so he's a guy that I would be fine protecting.
Yes.
I think his game will age better than Adam Henrique's. So,
Agreed.
David Backes, no.
Nope. Not even a question.
Ricard
Raquel, yes. You protect, especially with the couple years left on his contract at that really reasonable cap hit. You protect him. Danton Heinen.
I would protect Danton Heinen.
Okay, I'll check it for now. We can come back to it.
Age plus, I think there's things to like in his game. So, he's a guy you take advantage of. Sonny Milano, I mean, you kind of have to.
Yeah, I think you protect Sonny Milano. We can come back because we are now at 4 protected, so we have 3 spots left.
Let's just go down the list. Derek Grant,
no.
Yes.
Derek Grant to me was signed partially due to expansion draft considerations. To the reason why. Now, granted, this wouldn't explain why he got 3 years, but the reason why he got multiple years was to have him signed through the expansion draft to meet the 40-70.
I love when you try to attribute some logic to what the Ducks have done this offseason.
And then I instantly shoot it down afterwards.
It's fun to just spectate because just seeing the wheels turn in your head.
It's hard. Okay. It's hard. try.
So Derek Grant, leave exposed. Troy Terry.
I think you have to protect.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, that's obvious, yes. Carter Rowney. No, you don't have to do that. Nick Delorier, nope.
Nick Delorier is going to be... So let's just really quick run through this. The 40-70 on defense will be either Manson, Shattenkirk. The 40-70s at forward will probably be Henrique and Delorier and Grant, and you only need 2. So the Ducks, even if they were to wanted to protect Henrique, they would have Grant and Delorier to meet the 40-70 requirements. So even if you disagreed with our reasoning on Henrique and want him protected, the Ducks are good in terms of 40-70 guys with Derek Grant and Nick Delorier.
Okay, so right now we're at 5 guys.
Mm-hmm.
So 5 forward. So we have 2 other picks to make. Now, to me, it's a group of 3. Because you have all the AHL guys that, the Vinny Letteris, Jack Kopackas, Carricks, DeLeos, Agazinos, Podorowskis. You have those guys. To me, the group of 3 is Isaac Lundestrom, Sam Steele, and Max Jones. You can only protect 2 of the 3. So, Jake, who do you protect of those 3?
So
Two of the three.
this is where I would differ from you. I would leave Danton Heinen.
You haven't even heard what I said.
Well, no,
okay.
No.
Okay.
That I would leave Danton Heinen exposed and protect all three of these guys.
Oh.
Because I think if you're doing a future value projection, like I said with defense, I think Danton Heinen is less, and this is me talking here, someone who, as all of you listening to the show probably know, not the highest on Isaac Lundestrom, but I'll take the 21-year-old over the 25-year-old for this and protect Isaac Lundestrom and Sam Steele and Max Jones, the 21, 22-year-olds, over the 25-year-old and Danton Heinen.
Okay. So, but my issue here is that I'm very down on Max Jones.
Fair.
Extremely down. If you look at some of his numbers last season, actually, let me rephrase that. If you look at all of his numbers last season, he was an okay shot generator, barely below average, bad defensively, doesn't really generate his own offense. So he's a good penalty killer. I guess that's the only thing you can really say about him right now. Yes, he is younger, but with Danton Heinen, at least we can point to the fact that he is a good shot suppressor. He is good at limiting the opponent's quality of chances, and he's a slightly below average playmaker. So to me, that's at least a more interesting player. And with Max Jones, I just don't even think it's likely that Seattle would take him. So I'm not really even too concerned about exposing him.
I'm not too concerned that they would take Danton Heinen necessarily either.
I think they're likelier to take Danton Heinen than Max Jones, because Danton Heinen's a better player.
My issue with Danton Heinen versus, I actually disagree. I think they're more likely to take Max Jones due to age and cap and long-term cap hit. Granted, cap floor, but
you have to look at the player though. You're looking at it just from cap and age. There is a player element.
No, I know, and the thing is, I guess granted, I'm not that high on Danton Heinen personally, and maybe that's also playing.
What has Max Jones done to give you this confidence? And
I think
I'm open to hearing a case.
I think Max Jones has. I don't know if he's necessarily shown anything on ice, but I think he's shown in flashes what he can do, and I think not, in some ways.
You love to hear that.
Yeah.
He hasn't done anything on the ice, but
yes, but I don't know if I've necessarily seen that from Danton Heinen either. Granted, small sample size with the Ducks.
Danton Heinen has a track record
in
Boston.
Fair. But here's the other issue, and this is why I would lean towards protecting Jones, because it sounds like we both agree you protect Lundestrom, you protect Steele.
Yeah, I would protect Steele and Lundestrom.
And I would agree with that. I think you protect the centers. I think even though both of us have our issues with Isaac Lundestrom, he is 21 years old.
There's still time.
There's potential there. And I think there is still potential with Max Jones, and I think that's where I'm coming from on this. On Danton Heinen, and the other issue is he's an RFA next summer. At minimum, he's going to be making $2.8 mil. I think Max Jones will cost less next summer, and I think that does play a part in a team that is up against the cap. And granted, they do have money coming off the book, so it may not be an issue next summer. But I think that, and the other reason why I would go Max Jones, and this isn't necessarily my opinion. This is now pulling a bit of a U on this with the defense. Now, granted, we went against it at the end of the day, but thinking about what the Ducks would do. When you're a franchise, I think you're more likely to want to protect the guy with potential that you've developed, that you've put the time into.
That's totally fair. I think that's completely fair. My own view is just that I'm borderline out on Max Jones, if not completely.
That's fair.
And so I just don't see any value in protecting him, even if he'll be cheaper. Yeah, he'll be cheaper, but what are you getting for that money? If you're not getting anything, it doesn't really matter. So at least with Heinen, I can rationalize that he will give me something. Now, maybe Max Jones, maybe this coming season, his age 23 season, will be the year where he breaks out. It's possible. It's just, if you look at the stats, there is just almost nothing there.
And that's why I think this season becomes even more critical for Max Jones, for Sam Steele, for Isaac Lundestrom.
That's why it's tough to have this conversation right now, and that's why the next season will be so great for this conversation, because we're going to find out a lot about these players. Now, the difficulty will be to not overreact one way or the other.
Yep, and because circling back to last expansion draft, The Ducks overreacted to what was a poor playoffs from Shea Theodore.
Exactly.
And thought he was expendable, and Brandon Montour was the new hot thing for the franchise.
Jacob Larson has a breakout season and they protect him?
What if they protect him over Josh Mahura and lose Josh Mahura? Honestly, I think the player that Seattle will pick will be, at the end of the day, I think the Ducks aren't going to protect Josh Mahura, and I think Seattle's going to take him.
Well, here's the thing. Let's say that they don't do that. Let's say that they go Fowler. So let's just go over our list just one more time here.
Yep.
And then
So
let's do kind of a more specific what we think will happen.
So I'll agree. Oh, well, let me just run through. I'll leave it as Heinen being protected. So as of right now, putting a button on or a bow on our personal list, our combined list. We have Jack Silverberg, Rickard Rakell, Danson Heinen, Sonny Milano, Troy Terry, Isaac Lundestrom, Sam Steele as our 7 forwards. Our 3 defense, and also keep in mind Ryan Getzloff not protected. But we both or not both agree, but we potentially think that he will just be re-signed after expansion draft. The 3 defense are Fowler, Lindholm, Mahura, and the goalie is John Gibson.
Okay, so let's just redo this quickly. Fowler, Lindholm, Manson. Do you think that's the D?
If Josh Manson is still with the Ducks, yes.
He's gonna still be with the Ducks. Who are we kidding?
And yep, I mean.
Who are we kidding?
If Bob Murray is still the GM, he will still be with the Ducks.
Okay, let's look at the forwards now. So, what's the big difference you think with the list that we have and what the list could be right now?
Well, on the board right now, on the video, you will see the change I just made, which is swapping Danton Heinen for Adam Henrique.
So that's the only one? You don't think there's any others?
That is the only one I can really think of. I mean, what's one that you're thinking of right now?
I mean, maybe the only one I could see would be swap Sonny Milano for Derek Grant.
God, that would be awful.
Isn't it kind of plausible, though? Isn't it kind of plausible?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I actually think it's possible they protect Grant. I think it's also possible that they protect Max Jones over Sonny Milano. I could see both Milano and Heinen being exposed. And so you kind of dangle that for Seattle. So you dangle Milano, Heinen, and Mahura of the guys who they might target. And so of that group, realistically, I think Seattle logically would take Mahura, but the thing is we don't really know who else they would take from other teams and how that all fits into this. So that's why it's kind of hard to say who they would take because we don't know their larger strategy and we don't really know who other teams will be exposing. So maybe it's Mahura. Maybe Milano is the most logical pick of those 3. The highest ceiling forward or maybe Heinen.
It also depends on what they're doing with cap hit. I mean, maybe they try to take the guy that would have the highest cap hit out of this group. Maybe
it's Heinen.
Maybe they go, well, no. I mean, the flyer that they would take if they just don't want anyone would be David Backes.
Yes, but will Backes even be? He'll be a UFA.
Yeah,
right?
No, but that's my point. If they just want to take someone to just take someone.
Yeah, but
they're not necessarily looking to get a player. But I don't think there's a world where you would do that over Josh Mahura. That just wouldn't make sense.
Here is my thing with this expansion draft. I think that we've kind of gone over the ins and the outs of it.
Yep.
This isn't really that consequential of an expansion draft for the Ducks. I mean, it's going to have consequences in the short and long term, but I just don't see this big mistake that's out there for them to make.
Well,
I just don't see it.
The issue here, and
what would that be? What is the Shea Theodore level?
This is the big issue. Mm-hmm. We could have said the same thing last expansion draft, and the Ducks. But Shea Theodore wasn't eligible. That's the thing here that we have to remember.
But here's the thing, though. In that expansion draft, they had so many defensemen that they had to choose between protecting, right? Because you have to remember Sammy Vatanen.
It was Manson, and Vatanen.
Right, and so they don't have. Well, but the point is, they don't even have that kind of, I think, decision to make in this draft. right? I guess maybe it's between Shattenkirk and Manson.
Well, it's Shattenkirk and Mahura or Manson. Shattenkirk, Mahura, Manson.
But I just don't think that's as difficult of a decision to make either way. Whereas back then, Vatanen and Manson were both kind of still in their prime, and so that was a different decision.
The benefit for the Ducks this expansion draft as compared to last is they don't have no movement clauses in this expansion draft that are tying their hands, and that's a good thing because they have flexibility to expose or protect any player on their roster. There are not any auto protects, and that's a benefit for this Ducks franchise. I actually disagree though. I think that this is a tougher expansion draft because of the place the franchise. I think because of the place the franchise is in, the fact that they are potentially this is a team that, I mean, you and I both agree they should be rebuilding right now. They are not a contender as of right now, and they could potentially lose one of their younger pieces. And now, granted, those younger pieces may not become what you would want them to be. They may not be something that helps out the team long term, but there is the risk there. And to me, the issue with this expansion draft isn't the same proposition as last time. Last time you were potentially going to lose someone that would help you in the now, which, yes, hurts, but that was a team that was declining fast. This is a team that needs to be building, and you could lose one of those puzzle pieces for the building. And I think that's my concern here. And I mean, maybe it's just replaced by one of the younger guys. Maybe if you lose Max Jones, Jacob Perreault comes in quick and takes that spot and becomes much better than what Max Jones ever would have been. So maybe you're right. Maybe it's not as consequential long term, but
it's not. It just isn't. Here's the thing. This is kind of my overarching thought that I can't really separate from this. This team isn't good. There's not a lot of great players on this team. The younger players that you might want to protect, you can find a way to protect them, right? The guys that you really value, like let's say a Troy Terry or a Ricard Raquel or Sam Steele, Sonny Milano, you can protect those guys. It's not that hard to do that. But let's say in some crazy world you lose one of these guys. Just pick a name. Let's say you lose like a Sam Steele, or you lose a Sonny Milano or a Josh Mahura. That's not a crippling blow. Because none of them, and I emphasize, none of them have shown remotely anything close to what Shea Theodore had shown in the AHL up to that point before he got traded to Vegas, and also in the NHL, because Sam Steele wasn't good last season. Josh Mahura got a cup of coffee in the NHL. Sonny Milano's been traded, and there's some flaws in his game, but he does have some strengths. Even if you lose like an Isaac Lundestrom, right? He's younger, he's cheap, but he hasn't shown much on the ice.
It's one player.
That's the thing. So I just look at this, and it's an important conversation to have, but I just don't think it really is going to affect them that much.
No, that's fair. I guess the only way this could be consequential is if the Ducks do what they did last expansion draft.
The reason that it was such a big deal for the Ducks last time is because they were a good team, right? Or they were still kind of on the competitive side of the curve, and their prospect system had more guys that were ready, and there was some interesting prospects coming up. Like you had both Montour and Theodore. I just think at that point that the team was in a better place at that point than they are now.
The funny thing was with that expansion draft was that team was in a tough spot with losing a potential an NHLer, but that team was actually set up really well where I think almost every single prospect was exempt. I think Ricard Raquel, if I'm looking back, may have even been exempt. I'm not positive on that, but Andre Kasha I know is exempt. Nick Ritchie was exempt. Shea Theodore was exempt. Brandon Montour was exempt. That team was set up where they had all of their, and that's I guess where I'm coming in with. They have a lot more young guys that are not exempt this expansion draft, but you are correct.
But do you see Seattle finding a way to get a Jacob Perreault, a Trevor Zegras, a Jamie Drysdale, a Bo Gru, a Max Contour, getting them out of Anaheim somehow? Like, what would it take for them to do that?
No. I don't. But
the Ducks don't have enough obvious conflicts within this little eligibility test or this little kind of picking your protected list test to get to that point. The reason that the Ducks ended up in the position they were is because they had all of these inherent restrictions in the way they had to design their list with the no move clauses.
Yeah. No, that's
that
fair.
just doesn't exist this time.
That's true. It's a good point. That's I think a really, really good point.
But it is important to note all these things.
Yes.
So someone has to sort through it.
Real quick though,
Mm-hmm.
if you were GM, Felix Sicard was given the reins going into this expansion draft.
Yes.
Because I want the same option, and we'll see if I do anything different than you.
I'll just text Jake for all the answers. Let's be honest.
What would you do?
What would I do?
You have free reign to make trades.
Okay.
You have free reign to do whatever you want with this expansion draft. You don't have to figure out returns right now, but that does affect draft lists, and I think that's something to consider. But what would you do with this roster going into this expansion draft if you were the general manager?
Wow, you're putting me on. This is like more than the spot. I don't know what's the.
I have thoughts and I want to get them out, but I want to hear your thoughts first. If you want, I can go first.
Yeah, go for it. Let's see what you have to say, and I'll think through it.
So, if I were the Ducks general manager, I would be looking to trade Josh Manson.
Yes,
I think I think that's just so clear because instead of losing him for nothing, which isn't an awful decision, but you can trade him and get something of value, even if it's just futures, even if it's just picks. You're getting something, and the benefit of getting a pick is you're getting the same thing as the benefit of if you lost him to Seattle for nothing. They'd be taking on his contract, and you'd get a prospect back or a pick back instead of nothing. And so, to me, if you're even having a thought, if you're Bob Murray and you're even having the thought of potentially exposing Josh Manson, you have to move him. I think that there's not a question about that. If you are thinking about protecting Josh Mahura over Josh Manson, then you should be looking to do that. Now, maybe they don't, but if I was general manager, I would move Josh Manson. I'd probably honestly move Adam Henrique also for that same exact reason. Mm-hmm. And maybe there's more of a reason to leave him exposed than there is Josh Manson because the cap hits a little bit tougher. There's probably less value you can acquire for Adam Henrique. But I still think you can get something back. And so I would probably look to move Adam Henrique, Josh Manson. Now, granted, this is probably not a surprise coming out of my mouth, seeing as that's something I've been saying for a while. But I think the important thing is now that we've ran through this list, you can kind of understand why I've gotten to that point over the last 2 years, why I've said those things.
Well, but why Manson over a Lindholm or a Fowler, let's just say? Is it just simply the contract? Because, Lindholm has a similarly movable contract.
I would be open to moving any of those three. Yeah. I mean, I think Manson is the easiest to move. I think he's the one of least consequence to this team long term. Also, I think Fowler and Lindholm have the potential to do more later in their careers than Josh Manson does, but that could be completely off. But just to be clear, I'd be open to moving any of them. For something.
Okay, so back to your question of what I would do. I was pretty much going to say the same thing you're saying. I would get rid of the pieces that make this equation even slightly more complicated. So trade Henrique, trade Manson, or consider trading Fowler. I would consider trading Cam Fowler because he's much harder to move. He has trade restrictions. He's got a longer deal.
I think he can only be traded to 4 teams.
Right, exactly. But
which makes it really tough.
Yes, but here's the thing with Cam Fowler. I look at the last season he had, right? And it was a good season, but I look at the totality of his career and I'm still not sure how good he really is, right? We can't weigh this last season so much over everything else. And so I would consider moving him. Manson is the easier guy to move, but Manson is better than Fowler still, even going off of last season in certain respects of the game. I mean, Manson is clearly better defensively. In terms of play driving, he's actually slightly better at shot generation when he's on the ice. So, we kind of are at this point where we're writing off Manson a little bit because He's faded from the limelight. He's no longer this analytics darling. But looking at his numbers, right? Looking at these percentile ranks that we have last season.
Oh, he's still good. He
Josh
still helps
Manson,
the team now.
Well, but listen to the percentile ranks. So play driving. So offensively, 66th percentile. Shot suppression, 76th percentile.
Mm-hmm.
Individual offense, 57th percentile. Individual defense, 91st percentile. Like Josh Manson is still very good.
He is still a good player. The purpose of moving him has never been because he makes this team worse.
I understand, but the point is just that if you're going to move one of these pieces, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's very clear cut that Cam Fowler is the most difficult, but maybe you try to make that happen a little more just because he does eat up more of your cap and you're maybe not getting as much of a return on that investment as you are with Manson. Even if Manson gets extended to something that's maybe less than ideal, you're probably still going to get a little bit more out of him. Now, Fowler does have his strengths, but in all of the categories that I just mentioned, Fowler was worse in all of those. He is a better power play player. He's a better shooter, but I don't know if that's something that you just kind of write into stone that you're just keeping on your team. And then with Lindholm, he's just the guy you probably don't trade of the three.
Yeah.
He's just good at everything.
And
still.
yeah, and he's young enough where he still is in his prime and will be in his prime for a bit now.
So anyway, what I would do is just get rid of the pieces that make this equation more difficult. Manson is kind of the path of least resistance there with Fowler. There's just so many things you have to do to make that work. And then with Henrique, I like Adam Henrique. I think he's a good player. I don't think any of these players are bad, by the way, but it's just like you've been talking about. It makes this easier. And instead of potentially losing them for nothing, you could get an asset out of it. And then it also frees you up to protect the guys you want to protect.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in lockstep here.
Yep.
We're in lockstep.
Yep. Shocker there. So let's get into some questions from the Twitch chat. So those of you watching the recorded version of this on YouTube, you can go to youtube.com/crashthepond to find us on YouTube. Please, if you want to help out the show, go subscribe over there. It actually helps it a lot. It gets us up a little bit higher with YouTube. It helps us with various different things there. So if you've enjoyed the show, go subscribe over on YouTube. And obviously there's a recorded version of the audio version of this podcast. But the fun thing is twitch.tv/crashthepond. You can watch us live there. What was that?
V fun.
Yes.
That's what the kids say, right? V instead of very.
Oh, yes. You're trying to just slide in right there that you're real hip, right?
You know, I just want to let people know that I am cool.
That you know what the kids are doing right now. What the lingo is.
I'm aware.
You're on the TikTok?
I'm gonna turn a year older in 8 days, so I gotta cement that I still have some youth left in me. I'm entering my UFA years here, so
yeah,
kind of a rough spot.
I'm coming up on pushing going past my prime, so
yeah,
thanks.
you're exiting your statistical prime.
Exactly.
I'm still within it. I can still have a good point production season.
Getting back to what I was saying, twitch.tv/crashthepond. If you want to help support the show, you can subscribe to the show. You can, if you have Amazon Prime, you get one free Twitch Prime sub each and every month. You do have to hit that subscribe button after 30 days. We had Blue Eagle resubscribed for a second month in a row, so thank you so much. It's a good buddy of mine. Lewis X209 resubbed for 26 months. Thank you, Lewis. Thank you so much.
Just retire his number.
Yeah, seriously. We have a few of those that have been with us on this since the beginning. Really good friends of the show. Lewis, obviously, good friend of the show, both on here and with the different meetups that we do at games. Really, really good guy. But if you want to help support the show like them, go to twitch.tv/crashthepond. Subscribe, Amazon Prime. But you get special emotes in the chat, special badge next to your name. Also, if you want to just follow the show, you'll get notified anytime the show goes live. So let's get to this question. Scientific Lance asked, what would be the worst case scenario for the Ducks at this expansion draft?
Well, I think it's probably losing Josh Mahura.
Ooh,
that's probably it.
I think
sorry. The worst case scenario would be that you get cornered into having to trade one of your guys who are not eligible to be exposed.
Correct. That is
the worst case.
That is the worst case scenario of getting cornered into trading Trevor Zegras, which I don't foresee any path.
Or even a Perreault or a Drysdale or whoever.
Even a Comtois, honestly.
That's
fringy.
I mean that would suck, but he has to show he can back check for me to really kind of be too concerned about that. So yeah, the worst case is having to give up a prospect that is not in the list that we talked about.
Yeah, and T. Anderson, I'll get to your question in a quick second, but looking into that because I'm trying to get some info on that. But Lewis X209 said, will Ryan Getzloff be an Anaheim Duck beyond 2021? Do you think he will be a Duck? Do you think the expansion draft comes and goes, and even if he's not selected by Seattle, he's a UFA?
You asked me what I would do if I was in the GM chair for the expansion draft. I'll extend that out to just mean what would I do in general with this team. If the Ducks aren't in the playoff picture by the trade deadline, I would trade Ryan Getzloff. I know he's a no move, but guys with no moves get traded. It happens. So I would trade him and then try to get a pick for him. And then I'd probably try to re-sign him in the offseason and have him finish out his career at the Ducks. So I get a pick out of it. Maybe I ruffle his feathers, but whatever. It's a cutthroat business. And then he'll come back and he can finish out his career with the Ducks. So yes, he will be.
Yes, I agree. He'll be a Duck. Heyo Defo asks, do we have any idea why Bob Murray is so attached to Josh Manson?
Well, look, Josh Manson's a good player. There is nothing wrong with Josh Manson's game. Now, as I ranted about earlier, there is a definite case to be made that he should have traded him if this team were truly in a rebuild. But they aren't. And he likes him because he plays in an old school way, right? He's a tough player. He punches guys. He's just kind of a rough and tumble old school defenseman. And I think that that's something that Bob Murray really likes about him. And he's just a good player. I mean, it's not this objectionable thing to really like Josh Manson.
Yeah. And so the final question that we have, and I'm trying to still look into this just to get some answers, but do you have any update on when training camp, this is from T. Anderson 2014, on when the season or training camp will start? So as far as I know, I've only seen that early January. I don't know if I've seen an exact date necessarily associated with that.
The season?
Yes.
Yeah, so the season, it sounds like at the latest will start by the end of January. It sounds like right now it's between January 1st or January 15th as kind of a target date. And so for training camp, we know that the what is it, the Delete 8 or whatever, the teams that didn't make the playoffs this year, even the extended playoffs, they wanted an extended training camp. So for the Ducks, I mean, if the NHL and the owners and the players figure it out in the next week or two here, I mean, it might even happen this coming week. We may see a Ducks training camp by early December. So it could be coming up very, very soon, guys.
Yeah, I think because, if you have a roughly January 1 to January 10th start date, you would assume that they're going to want probably a 2-week training camp probably to get the lead up for it, especially if you have a team that has been out since August, typical training camp is what, like a month? So a shortened training camp would probably be 2 weeks.
Yeah, so I think
by training camp, I'm just talking about normal training camp and preseason is about a month. So for the teams that did play in the playoffs, they still, the ones that got eliminated early, played in August. To January is about a typical or a little bit longer than a normal offseason. Maybe it's right around the normal. So they're probably going to, even for a shortened training camp, they'll probably want 2 weeks. So if they want 2 weeks, that will put you and you have a January 1 start date, that will put you on December 18th. If the teams that, what do you call them, the Delete 8?
I think it's a basketball term, but I think it's 7 teams, isn't it?
Yeah. I was like, that doesn't
it's
work.
8. It's 8. No, is it 8 or 7? Whatever.
I think it's 7. It's 100% 7 because they had a 2014 playoff and there's 31 teams in the league. So one of those numbers has to be odd, Felix. Math.
What's a bad thing that rhymes with 7? Anyway, continue.
You'll be thinking about that as I go on right now. But so if you have December 18th for all of the teams that made the playoffs, you take that back 2 weeks. We're talking December 4th for the start of training camp. So that is 2 weeks from Friday. Mm-hmm. So it is coming up. Like
that's what I was saying.
Yeah, no, I'm just laying it out there in terms of the actual dates for everyone of we're coming up quick. So Yeah.
Oh, I have one. It's not perfect. The Depression 7. Too harsh?
No, it's bad. It's not good. It's really bad, Felix.
Well, you don't want to be one of these 7 teams, right?
No, I
It's
get it.
depressing.
I'm saying that it's bad. It doesn't make sense. Like, I mean, it makes sense, but like,
How does it not make sense?
it's just like a dad joke, like face to
Wow.
palm.
Hurtful. Deeply hurtful. I
Um,
guess I
Ken,
am getting older.
yeah, Ken Pafu asked to follow up on Heyo Deflo's question. Do we have any idea why the Samuelis are so attached to Bob Murray? I've got a thought on this. I think part of the reason is they're so hands off with this team.
Yeah.
And so they've given the reins to Bob Murray, and he led them to a pretty successful period. And so I think that they probably view it in the sense of he's gotten them into this hole. He deserves a chance to get him out.
Yeah.
And I think this is the season where he's promised them to get out of the hole. And if he has not gotten out, I think that's it for him.
Yeah. I think ideologically we view the Bob Murray situation as a pretty clear-cut one, that he hasn't done the job. He's kind of leading them in this confusing path, and it should be an easy kind of delete situation. Just get him out of there and start anew. But, it's not always that easy for people that are having to actually make these decisions, have the conversations, right? They have personal bonds. And so you want to, like you just said, you want to give the person that got you there a chance to get you back there. And I think that that's what's going on here. And that's not unreasonable. And I think that the way that the Samuelis approach this team is superior in terms of being hands off than an ownership group like the Pagulas in Buffalo, who are micromanagers and are in on everything, right? I think you hire the hockey people to do their job. Trust them. Trust that you have made the right decision, and then let them make their job. Of course, I'm sure the Samuelis have some input, but there has been no reporting ever of them being to that degree. So I think that they like the guy. They've given him a chance, or he's done well for them in the past, and they want to see if he can do it. But I do think that the clock is ticking and nearing midnight if things don't turn around.
Yeah. So T. Anderson asked, so if the Ducks don't make the playoffs, do you think Bob Murray is gone? I would think so.
Yeah, it's just 3 years in a row, especially if it's anything resembling the last 2 seasons, which, newsflash, not good, horrendous, very awful. If they're not even competitive,
yeah,
if they're competitive and they barely, if they're kind of like the 18-19 Canadians who missed the playoffs by almost a technicality. I've already talked about them. Whatever. I guess it's every time, huh?
Yep.
Yeah. Whatever. The point is, if they are a very competitive team and they miss by a razor-thin edge, then I could see him coming back, because at least then he has a to make that things are turning around. But if they look anything like the 18-19 and 19-20 Ducks, he ain't coming back, because those teams were bad and showed no signs of improvement. So,
yeah. Ken Pafu asked another question. Do you think if Bob Murray knows his job knows he isn't going to have this job anymore potentially, is he going to implode the team Chiarelli style? By implode, he means make awful decisions. I don't think that's Bob Murray's tool chest. You're making a face.
I mean, that's kind of what he's doing, right? Bring in Kevin Shattenkirk, and Derek Grant. This is like Custer's last stand, right? He knows this is it, and he has to get some kind of tangible progress. And I mean, that's exactly what's happening.
At least
now.
It's not Lucic.
No,
at least there's nothing that monstrumentally bad.
Yes, in terms of the cap hit, correct. But in terms of the on ice value,
Derek Grant.
Grant is in that realm. But yeah, it's
I mean, Derek Grant's worse. Milan Lucic is a good player compared to Derek Grant.
Correct. And so. Yeah, so I think Bob Murray is at that point. It's just he hasn't done it in such a catastrophic way. And Kevin Kevin Shattenkirk's a good player. Yeah. So it's not going to hurt the team per se, but it doesn't really jibe with what I view them as what they should be doing.
Yeah, agreed. So I think that's going to do it for questions. Before we wrap this up, it wouldn't be it wouldn't be a podcast with you and me. And screw it, we're at an hour 40-ish right now. But let's keep going here, because I got a topic to talk about. Uh-oh. And this works perfect with Lewis's question. And this came in after I had started this transition of what show should we binge. So it wouldn't be a podcast with you and me if we didn't talk about Star Wars.
Mandalorian.
You have finally caught up. So if anyone has not watched The Mandalorian, I think we can go into some spoilers right now. So might want to tune out. Bye, everyone. So, if you don't like Star Wars, if you haven't seen it, the new episodes of Mando yet, you might want to bounce from this. But oh boy,
why are you doing this?
Why not?
It's almost 10 p.m.
Why not? Because it's almost 10 p.m. That's the exact reason.
I have a bedtime. Okay, well, so here's my quick and dirty thought on the new season of The Mandalorian. First episode was borderline bad.
Ooh, I disagree there.
Okay, so the issue with that episode is it started off promisingly. So I like that they were working in the Boba Fett angle. I like that they were kind of giving Tatooine a new city, which we hadn't heard about yet. And I love that. I forget the guy's name already.
Timothy Oliphant's character.
The guy who had Boba Fett's armor, his speeder bike looked exactly like the engine of Anakin Skywalker's pod racer from The Phantom Menace. It was almost the exact same. And so I like that there was a bit of a connection back to the actual movies, more so than we maybe saw in the previous Mandalorian season. But the plot of that episode was just so basic. It's just, there's a monster.
Yeah, I guess for the first episode of the season, having a Monster of the Week episode is kind of odd. You would have rather,
lame.
But
very lame.
I still enjoyed it. I mean, here's the thing.
Enjoyable. Yes.
Here's what my view of The Mandalorian. I, of course, prefer the episodes that have long-term plot development, but I do enjoy still the Monster of the Week episodes because as a Doctor Who fan, they feel like Doctor Who episodes, and it's great. And not every Doctor Who episode has to go towards the long-term story of that season. There can just be a Monster of the Week, and it gives you the character development, and I think that the first two episodes gave you that. Now, having said that, the third episode was by far the best.
No. We still got the middle episode to talk about.
Okay, fine.
Also, kind of better than
the spiders creep me the hell out.
Yeah. So my issue with that episode is it was almost the exact same storyline as the first one, just with different monsters, right?
Yeah.
But at the very least, what I appreciated about that episode was that it was at least building towards something, right? Because now he's going to try to go find this Mandalorian. And
True.
he has to do it by transporting this really annoying frog character with the eggs. I did enjoy Baby Yoda eating the eggs, but just the whole monsters thing. At least they were much more creepy, so you kind of had that horror element.
Yeah,
but
it definitely did.
And I didn't like the whole getting pulled over by the X-wings and getting interrogated. Like it was kind of corny. I didn't love that episode, but it was still probably better than the first one.
Star Wars is corny at its core, though, with a lot of things. So I have no issues with that. I mean, granted, the first episode, same thing. There was long-term story. The fact of towards long-term plot of getting the Mandalorian armor.
Not as much.
True, but there was that. And then this final episode, though, yes. the third episode, this was the first episode that really went towards the long-term plot. And to me, this may be my favorite episode in the entire in all of the Mandalorian episodes, because it not only was a great episode that had great action scenes. Shout out Sasha Banks for professional wrestler for being in it and having some really good action as part of it. But it not only had great action scenes, it had you on the edge of your seat, but it tied in Clone Wars and Rebels for the first time. This is a live action show that brought it in, and I don't know if you know this because you haven't watched all of Clone Wars, right? You've watched parts of it.
Yeah, just parts, but yeah, I know that they're from Clone Wars.
But Bo-Katan, the main leader of those Mandalorians, that is the same person who was the voice actress of the character in Clone Wars, and the character just looks so much like her. They cast her to actually be the character in the Mandalorian, and so it just works out perfect. And the thing that I love is there was a whole lot of confusion when the show started as to why Mando would not take off his mask, because we saw so many Mandalorians take off their helmets.
Well, yeah. So that's the thing that I loved about this episode, is that it introduced kind of a new end game, a new kind of larger theme, a larger element. Is
Yes.
that despite the fact that we've seen Mando as this kind of, he is
This is the way.
That's what these Mandalorians are supposed to be. It turns out no, there is kind of a conflict within their own people, and I think that while some may view that as frustrating because it's just another thing that chips away at the mystique of the Mandalorian, I do think that it adds at least kind of a new wrinkle that we didn't know about, and it gives it a layer of complexity that wasn't there before.
Yeah, and I think it adds that complexity for people that haven't watched Clone Wars, and for people who have watched Clone Wars, it's a nice touch because this ties back to in the Clone Wars when Grief Karza not Grief Karga, wrong character. Forgetting the guy's name, but when he was killed by Darth Maul, and it basically split the Death Watch and Bo-Katan split off because she didn't want to follow Darth Maul, and that kind of led to all of this. And as it turns out, that group of Death Watch was who ended up finding Mando and had this whole entire new code. And so it just really tied a whole lot together. It brought in all of these different universes of Star Wars and had it going towards one thing. And the fact that we're going to get Ahsoka in The Mandalorian makes me so happy. For someone who hasn't seen Clone Wars, for who hasn't watched Rebels, who I've actually recently listened to the Ahsoka audiobook, Ahsoka is one of the best characters in all of Star Wars. She is what everyone thought Luke was. Everyone wanted Luke to be. She's basically Anakin Skywalker if he wasn't conflicted like he was.
Yeah, so it was a great episode. I loved it. We could go on about this forever.
Obviously.
But we should probably wrap things up.
Fair enough. So there was your Star Wars talk. I'd been itching
great
to talk about it, seeing as you had not watched it, but there we are.
I know you have been. I've had to ward you off multiple times to not spoil it for me.
Yeah. And
but
now,
no, it was great. The third episode, it made up for a lot.
Yeah.
It made up for a lot. But yeah, so if you've been enjoying our podcast, there's a few different ways that you can support us. The one that I think you're going to get the most value out of is our Patreon page. So that's at patreon.com/crashthepond. For the $1 subscription tier, you get access to our patrons only Discord chat. This is where with our patrons, we can, just chat about whatever the Ducks are doing when there's breaking news. For example, on free agency day, free agent frenzy, we were just going off and there was a lot of fun. And it's just a great place to kind of meet other diehard fans who maybe look at the game in a very kind of analytical way, right? That are just really into all the minutia of it, just like we do. So that's for $1 a month. For $5 a month, you get access to the Discord chat as well. But you also get access to 2 bonus episodes. And on these episodes, we dive into some broader topics, right? So we talk about the NHL as a whole. We do rankings. We talk about the Ducks and some larger topics there. We kind of have a little fun as well. We'll talk about Star Wars movies. Last one, we talked about video games for a bit because of all the new consoles coming out. So there's a lot going on there, and that's for $5 a month. It goes a really long way. And, of course, in the Discord chat, you also get to – we always solicit our patrons before we do those episodes to see if there's anything that they'd like us to talk about. So that's at patreon.com/crashthepond. Now, if you don't want to, if money's tight right now, that's completely understandable. One way to support us that has no cost financially, you just go to the Apple Podcast app, search for Crash the Pond, and you can make it really quick. You can just go and hit the 5-star rating, leave us a rating there. That helps us quite a bit as well. Or take a little more time, couple minutes, write us a review. We love hearing from you guys. It's really validating to hear that and to hear the great comments. So that's at the Apple Podcast app. Just search for Crash the Pond. We are on YouTube. This is a fun one. So we've got a great little community on YouTube of people leaving comments, and I do read those. I should start replying to them as well. Jake is all over that. So if you do comment on these videos,
I like to engage with our listeners.
You're just a talkative person, as evidenced by this 2-hour podcast.
Yeah.
So that's at youtube.com/crashthepond. So if you like to get these in video form. So Jake will actually post the Twitch stream video and audio to YouTube, and you'll be able to watch there. So make sure to subscribe to us there. Also, make sure to turn on your notifications so that when we do post these videos, you will be notified of it and you can just dive into it right away. But generally speaking, it is going to be Monday mornings or late Sunday evening when these go up. Couple of other things to note. So when we do these shows on Sunday evenings, we do go live on Twitch. That's at twitch.tv/crashthepond. If you have an Amazon Prime subscription, you can actually get a Twitch Prime subscription completely free to you, and it goes a very long way. And it's a lot of fun there because when you do become a subscriber, you get free emotes, you get special badges in the chat. It's a good time. Our Twitch chat is a lot of fun. It gets crazy, and you'll really enjoy it. It's just another layer to the experience that we try to offer. Of course, make sure to check out our website, crashthepond.com. That's at crashthepond on Twitter. And if you are shopping for clothes, do it at Mack Weldon. When you check out, use the code CTP, and you'll get 20% off your order there. Check us out on Twitter. Jake is on Twitter at ReindeerGames91. I'm on Twitter at Felix_Sicard. That is going to do it for us tonight, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you have a great week, and we will talk to you at the next show. Have a good one.
Bye.